All right, let's just cut straight to the chase for today's explainer and confront a pretty startling reality. That locum contract sitting on your desk right now, it was engineered by a legal team whose sole job is to protect the facility and the agency, which leaves you completely exposed to massive financial and career risks. And hey, that isn't a knock on agencies. It's just the adversarial nature of contract drafting. The real issue is that as physicians, you're trained to read complex clinical data, not dense legal boilerplate. Let's be real, nobody wants to parse through 20 pages of legalese after a grueling 12-hour shift. But often the clauses that sound the most routine are actually the ones that carry the absolute highest risk. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're zeroing in on the 8 most dangerous legal traps hidden in locum tenens contracts for 2026, and we're giving you the exact playbook to negotiate them. We are pulling straight from the latest independent compensation and contract data to arm you with the facts. We're going to show you exactly what to look for, what clean alternative language actually looks like, and what you should flat out refuse to sign. Section 1, Liability and Financial Traps, covering red flags 1 and 2. Let's jump right in and see how routine boilerplate language can seriously threaten your financial livelihood, starting with the heaviest hitters. So red flag number 1 is indemnification. At its core, indemnification is basically just a promise to pay for someone else's legal losses. In a clean contract, this goes both ways and is based strictly on your own mistakes. But a bad contract? It'll try to force you to pick up the tab for claims caused by the facility's own negligence. You're suddenly taking on enormous, unpredictable risk for things you literally have zero control over. And this right here perfectly illustrates why this is so terrifying. If you blindly agree to broad indemnification and, say, a visitor slips and falls in the facility hallway, or there's an administrative billing dispute, your malpractice carrier is not going to pay a single dime. Malpractice insurance covers clinical negligence, right? It does not cover contractual promises you made to pay a hospital's legal bills. Agreeing to broad indemnification creates immense, uninsurable personal exposure. Just look at the stark contrast here. On the left, you've got the toxic language you need to hunt for. Phrases like any and all claims or arising out of your services, with no limits tied to your actual clinical errors. On the right, that's the clean language you have to demand. It should be mutual, meaning if you protect them, they protect you on the exact same terms. And it must be strictly limited to your own material breach or negligence. Never, ever sign a blank check for any and all claims. Moving on to red flag number 2, tail coverage. This is a silent, lurking liability trap of temporary locum assignments. Because locum work is, by definition, temporary, knowing exactly who pays for the tail coverage when the assignment ends is one of the most financially critical terms in the whole document. Yet, amazingly, it's one of the most frequently left ambiguous or just completely ignored. And if a contract makes you solely responsible for tail coverage, or worse, just says nothing at all about what happens when you leave, you could be on the hook for massive out-of-pocket costs. Tail premiums typically run 150 to 200% of your annual claims-made premium. So if your regular premium is $20,000, that tail coverage could easily smack you with a $30,000 to $40,000 bill. Always confirm in writing whether the policy is occurrence or claims made and exactly who is buying that tail. Section 2, Career and Compensation Traps, covering red flags 3, 4, and 5. Let's pivot from liability and talk about the restrictive clauses that dictate how you work, where you can work next, and, crucially, when you actually get paid. Red flag number 3 is cancellation asymmetry. Think about this. If you are required to give 30 to 60 days notice to leave an assignment and you potentially owe repayment of travel expenses if you do, the facility should not be allowed to cancel on you with just reasonable notice and zero financial consequence. If they demand 30 days from you, demand 30 days from them. Or, at the very least, a financial remedy, like reimbursing your non-refundable housing costs if they cancel late. Symmetry is the absolute rule here. Next up, red flag number 4, restrictive covenants. We're talking non-compete clauses that try to dictate where you can practice after you leave, and non-solicitation clauses that stop you from working directly with the facility in the future. Some aggressive contracts will try to lock you out of an entire geographic region, say anything beyond a tight 5 to 10 mile radius, or try to bench you for over a year. For a temporary locum assignment, that is completely unreasonable and a massive roadblock for your career. Now, you might be thinking, wait, didn't the FTC ban non-competes? Well, no. It's vital to understand the current legal landscape. That highly publicized FTC ban was vacated by a federal court in 2024, and they abandoned their appeal in late 2025, meaning there is absolutely no federal ban protecting you right now in 2026. Enforcement is strictly governed by state laws, which are actively shifting, like Utah's recent HB 270 restricting healthcare non-competes. Because this is so localized, getting state-specific legal review is basically non-negotiable. Red flag number 5 covers compensation traps. Never accept a contract that lets them arbitrarily hold back a chunk of your pay, pending vague approvals or chart completions without a strict, defined timeline. And watch out for clawbacks, where they try to snatch back money they already paid you if you leave early, especially without prorated forgiveness. What you want is clean language. Specify net 15 or net 30 days for payment, outline exact rules for late payments, and ensure that if a facility's own schedule changes force you to leave, you don't owe them a thing. Section 3, Hidden Control and Ownership Traps, covering red flags 6, 7, and 8. This final category dives into those sneaky clauses that control your future availability and can quietly steal your intellectual property. They might not look like immediate financial threats, but they will severely limit your professional independence. So, red flag number 6 is exclusivity. While exclusivity clauses are pretty standard, combining a right-of-first-refusal with a non-solicitation clause creates an absolute nightmare scenario. A right-of-first-refusal means you have to offer all your future shifts to that facility first. Add non-solicitation, and suddenly they have a priority claim on your time, but zero obligation to actually give you hours or pay you. And worse, you're trapped. You can't independently pursue other gigs in the area. Red flag number 7 is intellectual property and work product, which has become incredibly common with the rise of telemedicine. Watch out for extremely broad work-for-hire language. If a contract says that all work product conceived during the agreement belongs to the facility, they can legally claim ownership over your independent clinical protocols, external content, or educational templates that you developed on your own time sitting in your own hotel room. You have got to explicitly carve out your pre-existing IP. Which brings us to red flag number 8. The danger of silence. Sometimes the scariest contract is the one that looks perfectly fine on a quick skim, but just leaves out crucial protections. The danger is in what isn't there. If there's no tail coverage language, you are exposed by default. If there's no set payment timeline and it just says promptly, that's legally meaningless. If there is no cancellation symmetry or IP carve-out, the facility holds all the cards. Silence in a contract isn't an oversight, it's leverage. Section 4, the defensive playbook and your pre-signed checklist. Okay, we've talked about all the traps, and you know exactly what the lawyers are trying to slip past you. Now, let's arm you with the exact defense checklist you need before your pen ever touches paper. Here is the first half of your pre-signed checklist. Make sure these 4 items are explicitly clear in the text. First, find out if your malpractice policy is occurrence or claims made, and get tail responsibility locked down in writing. Second, verify indemnification only covers your own acts and is totally mutual. Third, demand those symmetrical cancellation notice periods. And fourth, make sure any non-compete is strictly limited in geography and time and legally enforceable in that specific state. Moving on to part 2 of the checklist. Ticking off these final 4 items ensures you protect your money and your long-term career flexibility. Make sure payment terms are crystal clear, net 15 or net 30. Pin down exact release triggers for any holdbacks or clawbacks. Limit exclusivity only to the specific facility you're working at. And finally, explicitly carve out your pre-existing intellectual property from any work-for-hire clauses. Get it all in writing. And hey, keep this simple number in mind, $500. That is roughly what a specialized physician contract attorney charges for a flat fee review of a locum agreement. Honestly, at the income levels locum physicians earn, that cost is absolutely trivial compared to the financial ruin of a bad indemnification clause or a surprise $40,000 tail coverage bill. Having a professional review these clauses is a tiny investment for some massive peace of mind. Which leads us to our ultimate strategic gem for this explainer. The contract you sign dictates your liability for years to come. Never, ever trust a verbal promise from a recruiter who tells you, oh, don't worry, the contract is standard. Standard is not a legal defense. The written language on the page is the only thing that actually holds up in a courtroom. Read every single clause, negotiate aggressively, and legally protect your future. So, I'll leave you with this crucial question to chew on before your next assignment. What silent traps are hiding in the boilerplate of the contract sitting on your desk right now? Are you unknowingly giving away your intellectual property? Or maybe signing up to pay a hospital's legal settlements? Always take charge of your contracts, utilize this checklist, and know exactly what you're worth. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.